What is up everyone, Psychic Cup is starting later today, so let's get ready for it. In today's video, I'll show you 5 good teams you can run in the Psychic Cup. Starting off with what I believe to be the strongest core in the Psychic Cup, Galarian, Rapidash and Victini. Both of these just have incredible neutral play versus the entire Psychic Cup meta. Rapidash will be running Fairy Wind, Body Slam and High Horsepower. You could also consider running Mega Horn instead of High Horsepower, because Mega Horn will of course hit some of the Psychics you'll be seeing for super effective damage. But I find it's not really necessary. Fairy Wind, Body Slam spam is able to beat like most opponents. And then High Horsepower is just really good coverage for the few counters Rapidash does have. Because Rapidash does struggle versus Pokemon like Poison Jab, Galarian Slowbro, Metagross and Victinis, which you can just one-shot with High Horsepower. So that's why I think High Horsepower is the way to go here. Victini will be running Quick Attack, V-Create and Overheat, double fire moveset. You could also consider going Psychic instead of Overheat, because if you run a V-Create and Overheat, both your attacks will be debuffing your stats. So having a move like Psychic to bait with, to not debuff your stats can seem kind of nice, but I don't think it's worth it, because if they no-shield a Psychic, basically everything is going to resist it. I don't think that's worth it. And Overheat allows you to hit Pokemon even harder than V-Create does. And V-Create is already like an incredible move. Victini is straight up the best Pokemon in this meta, honestly. If you don't have a Victini, yeah, I'm sorry for you. That's tough. That's tough. You can definitely have play in this meta without Victini, by the way. Got some teams coming up that don't run it. But, I mean, the fact just is, Victini is insane. One of its hardest counters, Bruxish, for example, still takes so much damage from Overheat that in the zero shield scenario, Bruxish wins, but only with like 6 HP remaining. So yeah, Victini is just crazy. The way this team's gonna work is really you're gonna want to give one of your Pokemon the shield advantage, Victini or Rapidash, and with shield advantage, either one of them can just sweep. So that's the play. You can combine these Pokemon like Galarian Slowking. If you do that, place Galarian Rapidash in the lead, because both Victini and Galarian Slowking are gonna be weak to Bruxish. So Galarian Rapidash beats Bruxish. Place it in the lead. If you don't see Bruxish, switch into Galarian Slowking. Galarian Slowking will be running Hex, Shadow Ball, and Surf. I think Bruxish might be lured out then, which you can generally take a shield with a Shadow Ball from Galarian Slowking. Then Rapidash comes in, takes out the Bruxish, and Victini, shield advantage, destroys everything in the back. No question about it. The other team I suggest is actually a line I've ran for several seasons now in Psychic Cup. Basically every single time it's around, this is the team I'm drawn towards. I think it's probably one of the best teams here. Victini, Rapidash, and Malamar. Malamar, again, just a very good counter for Bruxish and the slow boys, which this core is like the only thing that it really can struggle with. So Malamar's is very good there. In this case, Victini in the lead, Rapidash on the pivot, as Rapidash pivot is just so good because it has coverage for everything. And then Malamar in the back to counter those pesky slow boys and Bruxish. So overall, this core, if you got Victini, go with this and you'll definitely be winning games, let me tell you that. So what should you run if you don't have Victini but want to counter the previous core? I think this is it. Galarian Slowbro, Malamar core. Very solid duo. Galarian Slowbro running a Poison Jab, Surf, and Sludge Bomb. With Poison Jab, you can just fully farm down Galarian Rapidash. Of course, shield the High Horsepower, otherwise you're gonna go down, but then you can just fully farm it down, have a bunch of energy ready for whatever's next, and Sludge Surf is a very good combination that's really not resisted by anything. And then Malamar in the back will cover for Slowbro's weaknesses to like Bruxish and opposing Malamar and Cladles. So Malamar there does very well. Malamar also, its only like real answer is like Galarian Rapidash, so it's covered with Galarian Slowbro. So I think this duo is very strong. Besides, the nice thing about this duo is that both of these Pokemon can beat Victini. Emphasis on the can, because they can also be beaten, which is why, oh we got Victini over there in a Core Breakers box. You're gonna see that a lot today, okay? Victini doesn't really get beaten in this meta, okay? Not hard. But at least I think with these two, you are more likely to beat it than it is to beat you. So That's honestly the most you can ask for in this meta. Though I would still recommend, if you really want to break this the previous core, the Victini G- core, you go with something in the back that can also beat Victini. Like a Bruxish, for example. Top right team, Slowbro, Malamar, Bruxish. If you don't lead into a Galarian Rapidash, switching your Bruxish, lure it out, farm down the Galarian Rapidash with your Slowbro, and then Malamar should be in a very good spot to sweep. That's the idea with this team. By the way, I'm not a huge fan of Bruxish. I've seen it get a lot of hype because it does have Bite, which is super effective versus a lot of Pokemon in this meta, but it's so squishy that generally you're gonna have to use shields to really to really win matchups, which is not a good thing. Because if you go a shield down, like even if you grab Switch, that's not that big, because you go shield down, the next Pokemon can farm you down from the opponent, and then they have a shield up and energy, yeah, and then you're just over. So what I would really recommend is, I do think Bruxish can work in this team, but don't go shields down, okay? Whatever it takes, don't go shields down. If you do that, and just use Bruxish as a way to lure out another Pokemon and just chip it a little bit with bites, I think you're in a good spot. Another option could be Malamar lead with double Slowboys in the back. How fun is that? I actually had to check if this was possible, but yes, you can run Slowking and Slowbro on the same team in GBL. And I think this team is very, very potent. Malamar in the lead, Slowking as a pivot. It's a bait out for Bruxish in particular, because Slowking does lose to Bruxish in the higher shield scenarios, but in the zeros, you can Shadow Ball it and win. Besides that, it's also good versus Victini with the Hex, Surf, and Shadow Ball combination, of course. And then Slowbro in the back to counter those Rapidash. So yeah, overall, I think two very solid anti-meta squads. The next team relies entirely on just destroying your opponent's shields as quickly as possible with Alolan Raichu or Victini, and then sweeping with the other. Both of these do have some shared weaknesses though, especially to Bruxish, which is why I got Malamar in the lead, because it covers those weaknesses really, really well. The way this team is going to work is if you have like a bad or neutral lead, you're going to want to switch out of Malamar eventually, generally into Alolan Raichu, and no matter what they bring in, unless it's a Claydol, but I don't expect Claydol to be that common, Alolan Raichu is going to get shields. It's going to run Volt Switch, Thunder Punch, and Wild Charge, by the way. That's just an incredibly potent moveset that hits for hard-hitting, neutral, or super effective damage versus whatever comes in, unless it's a Claydol. But again, I don't expect Claydol to be that common. If Claydol's common, yeah, maybe don't run this team. Or consider running Grass Knot on Raichu, but I don't think that'll really help. Maybe in that case, you should consider pivoting Victini as well. I think Victini pivot is still very, very fine. Can also get shields from basically anything. Like even if a Bruxish switches in, which is like Victini's hardest counter, you can almost beat it in the zeros. So yeah, I think that could be fine too. If you're seeing Claydols, pivot Victini instead, and then Alolan Raichu can just come in and sweep up the rest. By the way, speaking of Alolan Raichu, I think it's actually a decent, like, a replacement for Victini. So any team you see in this video that has Victini, Alolan Raichu could definitely be in that position instead. It's definitely not a direct replacement, as it doesn't have the resistance to Fairy that Victini does, but it does have a similar sweeping potential as Victini does. The next squad is for all you lazy people that just want to tap their screen and get a few wins. We got Shadow Gardevoir with Charm and the newly released Triple Axle to boost Gardevoir's attack stat even further. Bruxish as a nice Victini answer. And then Claydol as another Victini answer with Mudslap, of course, because with Mudslap you can farm Victini all the way down as long as you don't get hit by 2 Victory-8s in the process. Oh, and Scorching Sands, by the way. It is a new move, Scorching Sands. This is a double new moves team. Let's go. That's hype, isn't it? Yeah, there's not much to say about this team. Just, you know, tap your screen. And I don't think this team is, like, in particular amazing. I think it will definitely get you some easy wins. But I think you'll, in general, lose to most of the spammy teams. Like Galarian Rapidash, Victini, Malamar. They're all very, very, very spammy Pokemon. And they take your shields so quickly. And then once your shields are broken, like all these Pokemon are just gonna get knocked out by 1 or 2 charge moves. So it's I'm not too sure about this team, but it is definitely something I think is worth trying out if you just want to try something a little different than the charge move spammy teams that most of the opponents will be running. The final team is based around Cresselia, which is just an incredibly bulky Pokemon in this meta, where there really aren't that many other bulky Pokemon. Like, it just outbulks them so much that even in like negative type matchups, like versus Victini or Malamar, you still have a chance of winning those. And that makes Cresselia a very good generalist, as well as an energy sponge in this meta. Like, there's not many Pokemon. Actually, I don't think there's any Pokemon that can take 2 V-Creates from a Victini besides Cresselia, even though they're neutral damage. So yeah, that makes Cresselia just a very good like third shield on your team, really. Now, you are gonna want to pair Cresselia with a Victini answer, so dark type like Malamar or bite user like Bruxish works fine there. And then as a third, it's Psychic Cup. Let's just add Victini because that's an easy pick, right? That's an easy pick. Yeah, the way this team is going to work is just never use shields on Cresselia and try to use all your shields to just set up your dark type or Victini to sweep. It's honestly kind of simple. Anyway, that was it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. Let me know what team you're going to be running in a Psychic Cup down in the comments below. Love to hear it. I'll see you in the next video. Good luck with your battles, trainers.